May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the student under consideration be readmitted to school and that the superintendent provides the parents with a written summary of the board's findings.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Student is readmitted. Next item is adjustments to the agenda.
We don't have any adjustments to the agenda tonight.
All right. Item 7 is public comment. The purpose of public comment is to provide an opportunity for the public to express their interests, concerns, and suggestions related to matters under consideration by the board. As this is not a public forum, the board will hear public comments without engaging in discussion or offering responses. Speakers must state their first and last name and town of residence before beginning their comments. Each person has up to 3 minutes to speak, provided that they maintain common decency and decorum. Complaints concerning individual students or employees will not be heard at this meeting. Resolution may be sought through the superintendent's office as appropriate. The chair maintains the authority to stop any comments that violate these rules. For further explanation of the rules, refer to Board Policy BEDH, Public Participation at Board Meetings. Would anybody like to begin?
Good evening. My name is Anthony Fabro. I'm a resident of Windham, Maine. I have a daughter that is in the 6th grade. My third child's gone through the Windham school system. I'm here just to bring attention to and make sure there's awareness of some transportation school route bus changes that occurred during the school year. I want to start by thanking both Superintendent Howell and Board Member Woodman for listening to my concerns and being very responsive and communicating back with me. So I'm very much appreciative of the responses of both the Superintendent's office and the school board members. There was a significant change, in my opinion, of some school route bus changes, and I knew I was impacted, but as I talked to other parents, I learned there were a lot of other folks that were impacted by the school changes. We have a 11-year-old who's just navigating the middle school, that big change from Manchester to the middle school, which is a pretty significant change for someone that's 11. And went from a place of always being picked up at the top of our private road, which is about a 550-foot private road, that we would typically wait with her and bring her up to the end of the private road. A very safe place. It's off of High Street. It's a very straight, fairly low-speed road with not a lot of traffic, and a great place to pick up kids. She was always picked up curbside, so always on the side to get on the bus that way. The change for our specific route was now it's about a half-mile walk, and it's not necessarily the distance that's the big concern, to the end of High and Depot Street. I've been a resident here for 22 years in the town of Windham. I'm also was a member of the fire EMS department here in the town of Windham for 20 years. And that intersection, in my opinion, is not a safe pickup place for children because there's a blind hill coming down from River Road. My daughter also now has to cross the street to get on the bus. It's not curbside. So I have some concerns as a parent about the changes. From the school board perspective, and I know I'm going to go through, I'm pursuing the policies that's in place right now today for appeals. And again, people have been very cordial. The bus transportation director, we've spoke. Again, very good response from everyone involved. So I very much appreciate that as a parent in the town. But I just want to bring attention. One thing that kept coming back to me is the school board policy, the transportation bus policy. And when I read that, that was brought up several times that it falls within the transportation policy. My opinion after reviewing that several times is it's a very ambiguous policy. It basically leaves carte blanche to the transportation director to change their routes as they see fit. When I think that we should be looking at the transportation policy would be considering things such as if the route change is significant, some type of definition of what route change is, what that means, because I don't think there's been a route change, and again, I could be wrong, so I apologize. I don't know of a route change that's been this significant during my 20 years as a parent with kids through the school system. So this was significant. I also heard from parents that lived off of River Road on side streets, and kids, high school aged kids, a little bit older, but now have to cross the 50-mile River Road to get the bus pickup on the other side of the road. So when I was hearing, it wasn't just me, I felt obligated to at least come to the school board and let you know about the concerns. I think that in the future, when transportation policy decisions are being made for what I believe are significant route changes, there should be some type of a notification to parents ahead of time, maybe some comment or something for feedback. This was not really very well communicated, unfortunately, this change this year, which caused, the first day of school, High Street was lined up with children. No one knew that the bus route had changed.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry.
Your 3 minutes has...
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. If you want to just set them on the end of the table.
I'm Steph Clark, also from Wyndham. I am from the Pinewood Acres area, also with a bus route issue. I think he explained it really well by saying carte blanche. We also have gotten the answer, your stop is safe because we say it's safe. We have made the policy. The policy says we will pick a safe spot, and therefore your spot is safe. That is, page 1 is just the communications thus far, except I believe everyone on the school board has been copied except for on today's email, which was when we found out that, well, first I'll go back to the policy says that it will be the safest, the most economical, and time savings, and uniform. And we found out this morning that our new route, not only is it not safe, but it is less economical, and it is more time consuming for every child on the bus. This third page is the current large loop that the bus has to take to drop our kids off on the correct side of the road. The first day they were dropped off on the wrong side of the road, and these kids have never crossed the road before. So we have a group of 12 kids who have never crossed Falmouth Road, which is a very busy road, and our bus driver about had a heart attack when none of them knew what to do. This next page is a smaller loop that would not only drop our kids off in a much safer location that they have for more than 10 years, but it is more efficient in that they do not have to take this large loop. And I know it's very early in the season, so perhaps the looping will go down, but there was comments from someone else outside of the neighborhood. I'm sorry, I don't know what page that is, but this is where we found out other parents were tracking their children and saw the bus loop that exact loop 3 times to drop their kid off. One of them being to make sure that they were dropping them off on the correct side of our road, which could be fixed by just turning in and taking our small loop. The third map shows the houses in our neighborhood that are affected, where the old bus stop is, that is nice and safe, and where the new bus stop is, that is not safe. The next page lists all the reasons that the new stop is unsafe, and all the reasons why the old stop is very safe. Then I have a couple of photos of where the new stop is from multiple angles. And then most recent.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Dale Alley, right here in Wyndham. My son Jack goes to Manchester School. I am also here to reiterate the bus stop issues. When you put snowbanks into that factor, if you look at some of those pictures, you're going to put the kids not only in the road, but completely in the road. Where the parents have to park, if they're parking down around the corner, they can't see the bus. Now, if you try to make a safe space at that bus stop, and you put the parents all the way down, and now the bus driver's waiting for the kids to walk the length of the road. There is a bus stop that's been there forever. It's in the middle. There used to be 3 bus stops in that neighborhood, and my assumption is the reason why they did this to mitigate and speed up time and everything else. The problem is they compromised safety when they did that. And by living there and us being the parents and seeing what's going on, I've been in my home when my lights go out because somebody hit a pole out on Falmouth Road. Last week, somebody was ejected at 115, ejected right out of their car. These are right in our neighborhood, and these are throughways. These aren't neighborhood roads. When you go out to Falmouth Road, they're going 50. The speed limit through there is 35. Her dad has a radar gun. They were hitting 43, 45 consistently that morning before the bus got there. When somebody comes through and they're looking, they're seeing a flat road, they're seeing grass on the side. There's no sidewalk there. There's nothing. So you add the snowbanks, and then the children are in trouble. That to me is a risk that I think we've had snow here in October, but I think it's something where it is a safety issue. It should be addressed in kind of a immediate manner. We have been conversing. Everybody's been polite, trying to make things happen. But I wanted to kind of come here on record today to explain this to all of you so that we know it's on record that we're asking the school system to give us back our bus stop and make it safer. That's it. That's all we want. I don't need any more time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Mike Saunders, resident of Wyndham, Maine. I just wanted to personally thank each and every one of you for your time and for the work you are putting in on our community's behalf. I look forward to any and all opportunities to learn with you, along with providing my parental outreach and assistance to our community members, to my peers, parents here at RSU14. I would like to be involved with your participation any way possible to be that bridge between yourselves and the community, and maybe draw some more meaningful parental support into these meetings. We love our children pricelessly. You hear more than I've ever heard to those matters and what you deal with and what you hear and what you're responsible for. So from myself, representing my peers and the students of RSU14, I just want to greatly thank you for what you are doing. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Seeing that everybody here has spoke, I will now close public comment. And we will move on to superintendent's report.
Thank you, and just want to say, first of all, thank you to all the board members who were able to make it to opening day last week. We had a great kickoff here in the auditorium. It's the one day of the year where we actually have the opportunity to have all staff members together in one spot. It's a chance to, first of all, we kicked off the day with the Wyndham Chamber Singers. Dr. Nickerson gave his official, this is going to be my last year leading the Chamber Singers, and also announced that Norm Lewis is going to be the guest this year for what's going to be a big finale for them for American Family Holiday, because it will also be the last year for Kim Block and the last year for the Strange family and the band that's been involved with this production over a number of years. So I think tickets go on sale October 4th. I'm guessing this year they're going to sell out pretty quickly. But during opening day, it's also a chance for me to open up the district and talk a little bit about goals for the year and talk about some of the things that we want to make sure that we're working on. And really the theme of my talk was staying grounded for our students during difficult times. And one of the things that we come across, and I think we had some community members send us some spike in mental health issues with students, all sorts of peer issues that students are facing, and often for many of our kids, the one consistent spot for them is school and the teachers they have and the relationships they have. And so we talked about the importance of, as students are entering the school, that we're doing everything possible we can to partner with parents and partner with kids to build those absolute strong relationships. Going along with that as well is also, as staff members, taking care of ourselves and making sure that we're putting some mental boundaries with our work, that we're taking some time to step away from work, spend some time with our peers, and then also just making sure that we rely on each other for the enjoyment of why we all got into this business. So again, it was a great opportunity for us all to connect and kick off the day. We also recognized a number of staff members with longevity awards and a good chance to celebrate people who have been in our district and committed quite a bit of their professional time to things that have happened. Couple things that I want to address tonight, and I'm glad we had a couple people come and talk about transportation. I know it's been a topic of discussion, and done quite a bit of reading over the last couple days on some old policies, both for Wyndham and Raymond, and then looking into RSU14 policies. But some of this is also in some work that was done this summer with transportation, with reduction of 2 middle school, high school routes, and the reduction of 2 elementary routes, which, looking at greater efficiency, I think everyone as a community is aware, and I think the board's aware that we had, I think 100 runs that were canceled last year over the course of the year due to shortages in staffing. And so looking at ways that buses that weren't completely filled, making sure that we were using what we had for resources as efficiently as possible. And I do realize that some route changes and, some pieces that we've taken internally is that getting out in front with communication much earlier. We left a large window for parents to notify us of changes. I think we're going to push that window back and start a lot earlier. But going back to some of the original Wyndham Raymond policy, which had walking distances for bus stops. And for board members, I don't think anyone here was actually on the board for Wyndham. Marge, you might have been, or the year that you came on. But there used to be guidelines, which was for elementary students 0.3 of a mile for walking, and for high school students 0.6 of a mile. At some point, the board changed policy and heavily pushed cluster stops. There was even some discussion at the time about eliminating even high school runs at the time and just offering transportation K-8. The board had some very rich discussions through that policy work, but then had the opportunity to look at trying to maximize with cluster stops to the extent possible. And so that lent itself into the policy, and I did hear tonight that that policy, which is a little bit ambiguous, but it really relies upon the transportation director in trying to develop not only routes that are safe, but routes that are safe and efficient. And so working through that process. And so the policy is there. Policy EEA, I think the board looked at it last year. It's definitely something the policy committee can take a look at in perspective to how bus stops are established. The other thing I want to mention is that typically first couple weeks of school, as everyone is getting into pickup routines and as buses are starting to run, route times start to decrease. The other thing that we've talked about is that if we have additional staffing that comes on board, there are a couple runs that we may split to create a little bit more efficiency and create additional speed. And so we've hired at least one new driver since the start of school. We're looking for others, and so to the extent possible, but again, looking to make sure that we are providing 100% transportation days over the course of this year, and then also looking at where bus stops are. For board members, if it's a workshop that you want to do or another conversation on transportation, cluster stops, if you look across the district, I believe Wyndham is almost 50% private roads. Of all those private roads, students are required to come to the end. For most neighborhoods, students are required to come to a cluster stop that is at the end of the neighborhood. And so looking at, there's that balance again between efficiency of trying to get kids in a spot and then looking at individual places where bus stops happen. So there's work to continue to be done on that, and we'll continue. I think the other thing I've mentioned to a few people is that transportation is always monitoring. They're always listening to drivers, trying to take feedback to make sure that, again, the runs are going to continue to support our students and our families' needs. So still some work to be done with that, but just, again, want to give board a little bit of background on that. Additionally, just a couple people or a couple departments I really want to thank and point out. Technology. The board's aware of this because you spent some time looking through a cell phone policy this past spring. One of the biggest things that I've noticed at lunchtime, and I don't know if Maggie, you've noticed the same thing, but actually conversation is much louder in the cafeteria because people are talking. And so it's been some interesting to just observe what's been going on. And students and staff have been working to embrace the policy and make sure it works possible. But technology has been a great support in making sure that the staff here has the tools. And really just want to thank them. Additionally, our custodial staff, the buildings look amazing. I hope board members and community members, when you walked in tonight and saw 22-year-old floors that are shining like the day the school opened, you don't see that everywhere when you get a chance to go visit schools, and just thank you to our custodial staff for making that happen. Hiring, we are still in the process of hiring. We're still looking to hire at least one more bus driver and van drivers. And so if individuals who are listening tonight, if that's a question about a position, feel free to reach out. Now, the last thing that I just want to mention, and I've had a number of phone calls on this over the last 2 days. I know that there's been some discussion on community boards and discussion among community about naming of the school in honor of Bill Diamond and the legacy that he had here in Wyndham. I don't know personally the connection to Raymond with whether or not Bill's, when he was in the Senate, whether or not Raymond was covered under that. But one thing I've pointed everybody to, and I also just want to point the board to, if you have questions about it, your board, you have a policy, it's FF, which is naming of facilities. And within that policy, all naming decisions come back to the school board for discussion and for board decision. The other thing that the policy talks about is the board making sure before they make any sort of decision that they reach out to the community, that they're trying to get as much information as possible prior to making a decision. So just wanted to bring that board's attention, and I can certainly include policy FF, forward it to the board so you can take a look at it. But I know it's been a topic of conversation. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to Bill and Jane Diamond. Both were outstanding supporters of RSU14 schools. As I mentioned in my email to the board, Bill Diamond was the first principal of Manchester School, and definitely throughout his time in the legislature and his time in the public life, had a huge heart for this building, had a huge heart for all RSU14 schools. Was a big supporter of AmFam and was a big ticket buyer also as well for that program. But just enjoyed Bill's friendship and getting to know and have the support of him over the years, and he will be sorely missed. Jane, in all of her years teaching at Wyndham Primary School, will continue to be a great force in the community, and just thoughts go out to them this week. I know it's been a difficult week for the family as they work on planning a celebration for Bill in the upcoming weeks.
Thank you. Our next item is board roundtable. Who would like to start? Grace.
So I would just certainly echo the sentiments for the Diamond family, knowing Bill Diamond during his time, at least as state senator, that he was very supportive of public education, public schools, students, and educators. So we will miss him. On a different note, I was just feeling incredibly fortunate to be able to attend that opening day session that the superintendent's already spoken about. The energy in this space of the full staff was just palpable, to say the least, and just very exciting start to the school year, and to hear the performance of the students and see just the joy that they convey as they are performing says a lot. And so I really appreciate being able to do that. And I'm very happy to hear about the cell phone policy so far, because I've figuratively, at least, have been holding my breath all summer and didn't really want to ask because I was afraid of the answer. So I am glad to hear that at least for now it's off to a good start, and I really appreciate the efforts of everybody involved to make that work, because it's so very important for our kids, and I know it will make a big difference going forward. So thank you for all of that. Thank you.
Jody?
So just a couple things. Thanks for speaking about transportation. This year was, I think, the first year before school that I had people reach out to me, and it was really around transportation and some of the concerns, and not asking for action, but really just providing feedback, and would just share back that the timing was very tight, and with families having to arrange care before and after for bus routes. less than 2-3 business days is not sufficient for families. And I think that if we do a better job with that next year, some of the other things that we're hearing about tonight may or may not have time to get resolved. Certainly families could work in communities to do drop-off and pickups at some of these cluster stops. You know, you do Monday, I'll do Tuesday. Some of that, if there's time, can facilitate some of that to happen organically within our small communities. So that's something that I would just provide that feedback, just that the timing of transportation was really tough for some of those families that I heard from, with moms and dads working out in the morning and then having care after school. One of the other things I wanted to just share back was not to add more tasks, but where are we at with the ability for staff members to put in events into a big calendar for board members to be able to view and enjoy all of?
That is a great question. We're hoping to have something out by the end of the week.
Okay, that's great. And in case the public's wondering, the board members are really just looking for the opportunity to share time in all the spaces and places of things that happen. There's hundreds of things literally that happen every day, and with different schedules, all of us, we like to share our skills here within the team and workshops and the work that we do as board members. But I'll speak for myself. If I get the opportunity to go into a building, it's just a real delight to see some of the impact. Certainly when we stay up into the what's and we don't get to do the hows as much as we would like to. So I would be really eager to see that up and going early in the year. So I appreciate that. And that's all I had for tonight.
Joe?
Yeah, thank you. I just reflecting on some of the feedback on transportation, some of the emails that we received as well. I'm always hesitant to put more on the policy committee because there is so much on the policy committee.
Joe, can you get a little closer to your mic, please?
I'm sorry,
Thank
bad
you.
habit. I do think it is worthwhile for us to at least have a discussion on if we want to, air quotes, reopen this policy for discussion this year or not. Maybe we can add that to a policy agenda. Things that stick out to me that are, a bit ambiguous is was pointed out was, perhaps some objective criteria, more objective criteria on how safety assessments are made. Just an idea that might be helpful in helping people understand how decisions get made. I think it's really great to hear of how the communication is occurring now. I think that's really positive, and I know Aaron and Sharon aren't here, but huge thanks to them because I know they've put in an absolute Herculean effort to try to manage this, and to Superintendent Howell as well, who's always so responsive. But I do think it's worthy of a discussion, and that's all I got. Thanks.
I will echo I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ginny.
I just wanted to thank the folks for coming tonight and speaking. I know that this is very, it's hard to put your child on a bus. It's hard to think that your little 5-year-old is crossing a street that they never had crossed before. And that's a huge safety issue, and that's part of the policy. So I think, to me, that's like the number one part of the policy. I went to Mr. Favreau's neighborhood, and I saw how the bus would stop. If you know Depot Street, and it comes down by High Street, but there's a real blind spot there. You're just about on you get to the top of the hill, and that's where the bus is going to be, or is. So a car that's going too fast, and we all know they go too fast. The cars go too fast in Wyndham. They don't follow the speed limits. So I was trying to think outside the box, and is there some way to put a sign saying there's a bus stop there? Something, because they need to be warned that there's a bus, and they're going to go over that hill and hit the back of the bus. It's really a tight place there.
Ginny, if I can just add that Aaron did meet with Public Works today and request that sign at the top of that hill. So.
And they didn't ask me to be there. They knew I was thinking that. I thought the presentations were very well researched. You had great alternative. Mr. Favreau had said to me that instead of stopping on that hill, if they went into the emergency management driveway, parking lot, they could easily turn around there. There's a big parking lot there. So I'm just saying that out loud because I know he didn't get to finish his talk. And he has had a lot of time on the emergency management program in Wyndham, so he's got a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. The last thing that I will say about that he told me is that he wondered if there's a way to cut down on the emails to everybody. He gets a lot of emails about the menus that he really doesn't care about. But he said if there was an email saying that there was going to be a bus change, nobody on that street got it. So they were all out on High Street waiting for the bus. So that was just a suggestion. If there was some way to kind of tweak the email system so that he wouldn't have to get the tennis schedule, because that doesn't affect him. So anyway, that's it. It's been really a pleasure speaking with him and listening to the other people speaking. I think they all have really good suggestions, and I really like that they had alternative rather than just saying, nope, 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 we're not going to do this. How about doing it this way? Would that work? Thanks.
Sure. Anyone else? All right. I just wanted to say it's a teensy bit frustrating. I feel like in policy, I read the policy like 30 times by the time we're done with it, and I think we thought of everything, and then something comes up we didn't think of, and I feel like we just looked at this, but I am also in favor of re-looking at the policy. I'm certainly not opposed to kids walking a little bit farther, but it gives me pause to hear that maybe the locations are unsafe, and I'm not making a judgment if it is or it is, but I'm willing to just look at it again. I also wanted to make the observation that I'm recalling when we looked at the calendar for the current year, we all were a little bit worried about the first day, Wednesday, being a first day, and would that be confusing? And I think having the first day of school as a full day was the right decision. I think having that day on a Wednesday, at least for my part, I regret voting for that. And so part of the reason is if you have a primary school student, you know that they are allowed to have two different after-school plans, one for the rest of the day of the week and one for Wednesday. So I think it largely fell on the office staff to check with basically every student in that school to say, is your Wednesday still valid? And then there might, because it was Wednesday on the calendar, right? Your work schedule might be Wednesday, but now the bus is coming 2 hours late from when it normally would, and is that still appropriate? So that was a huge lift for all of the office staff for, Manchester Primary School, Raymond Elementary School, and I actually apologize to the ones that I saw. So if this comes up again, in however many years, I would have advocated for pushing it back to Tuesday, maybe as the first day of school. So I just wanted to acknowledge I feel a little bit of guilt for that decision. But our staff handled it really well. And as far as I know, everybody got home. So that's what I had. If nobody else has anything, we can move on to committee reports. Fine. I'm so sorry. Please.
I just wanted to say from what I saw, the first 2 days of school went really well, and I wanted to just say thank you to all the teachers and administration for just making the transition into the new school year as easy as possible. And I also see a lot of them going out of their way to enforce the new phone policy and just maintain good relationships with students, and I think everybody's doing a really good job with that, so I just wanted to say thank you.
Okay, now we can move to committee reports. Finance.
Yeah, so Finance will meet September 8th. Thanks for the flexibility of the committee in moving that. I had noted a different date last time, 12:30 to 2, central office. September 8th will be your first meeting.
Facilities.
Facilities Committee will meet the day after. September 9th, also at central office, except we will meet at 5:30.
Policy?
We're going to meet on Monday, September the 8th at 9:30 in the superintendent's conference room, if anyone would like to join us. We are going to look at one legislative change, and we're going to ask Bill Hanson, our facilities director, to weigh in on that. It's around temperature regulation in our buildings and having a policy that's been mandated for districts to have that did not exist in the past. Certainly we have internal procedures, but no official policy per se. So we'll be working on that. We're going to do a little housekeeping. So our website will hope to do some work on this year in terms of how we interact with the public around the policies that we have available for them to review and how relevant they are for the different people that might consume them on our website, and look at what that looks like between Gary and maybe someone that like Kim DeBay, who's going to work on that regularly, updating policies as we work through them throughout the year. And then we will work through policies that have been requested. One of them, namely, if anyone was particularly interested in providing feedback, Ryan Karen, our high school principal, of course, asked us to take a look at graduation requirements. So we are going to start with that one this year. So if anyone had any feedback or wanted to keep updated on that one, and of course our agenda is on the RSU14.org website.
Curriculum?
Okay, so Grace and I got to sit down with Christine Hessler today, which basically is the curriculum committee, to have good discussion to draft out our plans for the upcoming school year. So we decided our first meeting will be on October 1st, and we welcome everybody to come and listen to the presentation on phonemic awareness. This will include the action research from RRS last year and the implementation plan, which started at Wyndham Primary School this past week. The presenter will be Kirsten Chansky and Jessica Melcher. Other topics will include bar implementation at Wyndham High School, Jordan Small Middle School, Wyndham Middle School, and Wyndham Primary School. Middle level teachers presenting shared units that they've created based on the scope and sequence of aligned units, and then the writing across grade K through 12. The committee will connect with the board leadership to determine how to move forward with school data presentation, whether it be through the committee or a board workshop of some sort. And that is it. And everything's updated on the website.
All right, next item, report of the secretary. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes of the August 20th, 2025 meeting.
I second it.
Board discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Next item, new appointments.
I move to approve the following appointment for the 2025-2026 school year. Connor Hassen, I apologize if I mispronounced it, resource room teacher at Wyndham Middle School.
I second it.
Board discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Next item, board goals presentation. So in August, at our first school board meeting back, we had a chance to go through our goals process for the year as a board. We came up with 3 goals. We have a number of action steps. I'm just going to read the goals tonight. These will all be posted on our website probably tomorrow morning for the public to view, and I think they were linked in the agenda too. So our first goal is around communication, which we're actually going to work on tonight. By June 2026, the school board will develop and implement a comprehensive public communication plan that increases community understanding of budget processes, educational outcomes, and funding impact while expanding opportunities for meaningful public input. Second goal is in the category budget and finance. By June 2026, the school board will focus on long-term budget planning as it continues to work to gain a greater understanding of the implications of finance on district operations and programming. And our last goal was in educational programming. By June 2026, the school board will monitor, evaluate, and report the results of educational programming and academic achievement. And again, we have a number of action steps there that we're going to be just picking away at as we move through the school year. Any comments on that before we move on? Okay. Next item is district goals. You're up, Mr. Howell. And Ms. Frostburton.
Testing. Thank you. So Chris and I will tag team. You should have a paper copy in front of you. I believe these were passed out with the presentation, so you can see that. But for those of you in the audience, the focus this year for our district goals. So these are, I'm going to review them with you all, and then Chris will get into the strategic plan. But how we do this every year is the administrative team reflects multiple times throughout the year and looks at the strategic plan document and then the progress monitoring spreadsheet that we've shown you before. And that's where they take every component and they reflect on each of the core beliefs, there are 6, and every action step, and they think, where is their school or program relative to the goals that we set forth? They use that reflection to establish annual goals. And so the goals I'm going to review with you are the following. There are 3 goal areas this year. Last year we had 2. The first is a continuation of our focus on the instructional framework. So thinking deeply about teaching and learning, using research and best practices, those strategies that really engage kids, and we've mapped that into a framework. So their continued work as instructional leaders to bring that framework and the language to staff. So a lot of these very specific bullets and action steps will hopefully, if it goes well, as we hope, will get us to that overarching goal. By June 2026, all schools and programs in the district will demonstrate measurable implementation of that framework. They've already been doing this work, but this is to take it to the next level. So 100% of the schools need to work on establishing common instructional design and collaboration time where educators sit down together and they have this meaningful time to think about the standards, the end goal expectations, and map together engaging units and lessons. The administrators are also going to work on making sure that every school, that these teams that work together have at least 2 common units by grade level. So from pre-K right through to seniors, that there's 2 integrated common units that they've had time to sit at the table and develop together. 90% of instructional staff, we'd like to see them participating in targeted professional development. So a lot of voice and choice in thinking about what do they need professionally to grow. So we want to see a high level of participation in differentiated professional development. And that PD is really focused on one area in the framework. So there are many areas in the framework, but really lasering in on an area they feel they need support, an area where they'd like to grow. We had developed an instructional walkthrough as an administrative team where we go in and take a look for 5 to 10 minutes, what's going on in this classroom. We want to increase the frequency of our walkthroughs. In addition to the administrators doing that, we're bringing in the coaches as well. This is a non-evaluative opportunity to get into classrooms and have a sense of, without naming the teacher, a sense of what is going on in that classroom. And we use that framework to ground the information and the data that we put in the system. You'll see here when we get into academic achievement, they collectively have a goal of a 3 to 5% improvement in their school's academic achievement data, specifically in the areas of math and literacy, so continuation of last year's goal. They'll be using state assessment or grade level district determined assessment data to look for that growth of 3 to 5% minimum. They're also going to be focusing on examining grade level and school assessment data as an administrative team with all of us at the table. So as we administer these assessments and they get the data, we bring it to the table and we have discussions about the data as a team more often. And lastly, the consistent coaching cycles. So we know we have an amazing team of instructional coaches, but we want to make sure that we are giving this time for that collaborative practice and planning, that's going on, and they're getting coaching. People who are experts in the field and can really provide targeted, specific feedback to our practitioners. Any questions on that first goal area? Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, thanks. Just a couple of questions that come up. First off, I think it's really great, and I really appreciate the numeric measurements that are here, which I've, of course, talked about in the past. Just a couple questions, I guess, or things that made me turn my head a bit. As far as the professional development, One of the things you mentioned is giving the individual the voice and choice in what they do. The only thing I wonder about that is that we all tend professionally to gravitate to the things we enjoy versus perhaps the things where we need more work. So just wondering if there's opportunity for other input in that to help them make decisions that are more advantageous.
Yeah, so there's a variety, right. We want some voice and choice, which will lead into our next goal area of staff engagement. But there are also areas we know we need to grow in, and that often is a conversation. There could be a school that's really focusing on one component of the instructional framework, and then the voice and choice comes within that one area. So
Makes sense.
A little bit of both.
Okay. Thank you. My other question on the academic achievement, two-part question. So why a range of 3 to 5%? Why not pick a target? And then the follow-up question is, we have a lot of different tools to measure. I assume the varying tools here are because different schools or different grade levels are going to use different tools. Are we sticking to a specific tool year over year to have good longitudinal data?
There's actually two pieces to that, Joe. First of all, not every grade level has a state assessment. So K to 2 doesn't have, our pre-K to 2, and then now with assessments being moved to just sophomore year, freshman doesn't have an 11 and 12. So looking at what are available things that are there to collect some data. And yes, we need to stay with some consistent data points for looking to see whether or not we're continuing to grow. So for those that do have the ability to break down through state assessment data, we'll continue on with that. But for some of the other ones where we don't have that consistent looking at individual district determined data, or it could be anything from high school level SATs, PSATs, could be attendance, could be behavior, could be a whole bunch of things that BAR is looking at in order to be able to look at that data and look at for some growth. Because we don't necessarily have in those grade levels any sort of standardized data that we're collecting. Course failures would be another one.
And how we arrived at the 3 to 5%, there were a lot of numbers. We felt this was a reasonable lift, and we may see more growth than that in some areas, but that's the target for everybody. I think those conversations we're going to have are critical to the work.
I was wondering what consistent coaching cycles mean. Does that mean everybody gets a session with the coach?
Right. So Christine Hessler and her team work on mapping out, are we making sure that everyone's getting consistent language and strategies and research, but also that all the schools that we're getting around and providing support. So one area of focus at the younger grades, pre-K, K1, is certainly the work that she's doing with Kirsten Chansky and Jess Melcher around that foundational literacy and phonemic awareness. And so they're mapping out sort of those coaching cycles, making sure we've done the staff professional development and then the side-by-side direct coaching.
My only concern with that is we have a limited number of coaches. So, is the determination that it was better to make sure that we touch everybody versus this is like highly directed, this is really where it's needed?
I think the work they're doing to begin with whole staff, professional development and conversations, making sure that everybody gets that common message, and then identifying the areas where they need to do more intensive coaching, that's the work that Christine's doing with the team.
Okay, so it's not that every teacher gets a coaching cycle if
Correct.
they don't necessarily need it. I don't want to.
Right.
Okay, all right. I misunderstood
And I think
there.
also as they look year to year, are we making sure that we're not missing a grade level or missing a specific content area that really warrants some additional coaching?
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
I'm not sure if you're taking requests at this point, but just wanted to hopscotch off of what Joe was talking about. Of course, if we have 30% improvement, that's a thing that will just occur, and your minimum for how you would measure whether what you were doing in terms of implementation was successful would be that it was a minimum of 3 to 5 across whatever measurement you use for whatever building for ELA versus math is the way that I interpreted what you said. And I guess what I'm requesting is if you're looking at in curriculum how you're going to report back at your October meeting to whether that's going to come through superintendent in workshops or whatever that looks like, I would just ask that that's added in as some level of granularity so that we can follow along with you. Not that we need to have all the particulars, but 3 to 5%, with the opportunity that we have to increase in intervention. I'm just looking at this like that's what we're striving for, and that's not what we're striving for. That would be our minimum level of threshold for success, I guess is my question.
Right, and you're going to have different areas where there needs to be more growth exhibited, and other areas where you're working on maintaining students are already performing at proficient levels. So that was the framework. The next focus area is staff engagement. So by June, the end of this school year, each school program within the district will implement at least 3 specific, measurable staff engagement initiatives tailored to their unique needs. This really, as you know, one of our core beliefs is staff engagement. We have student engagement, community engagement. How do we reach out to the community, have families and community members feel a part of this work in schools? We know that's critical, but staff need to feel supported and engaged and excited to be here. Part of that comes from their professional collaboration with each other, the voice and choice that we spoke about earlier, but these bullets really laser in on the staff engagement. So opportunities for them to provide feedback about how the professional development is working for them. That's critical. And then they see our response to that feedback. That targeted professional development and team building activities and recognition programs, as you saw if you attended opening day, recognizing longevity, inviting and welcoming in new staff, recognizing people in a variety of ways. Building in time at our A-team meetings to report out on those examples, that accountability partnership work that we do. So how is that going? Could anyone give us an example from whichever school? So them coming prepared to report out on the specific creative things they're doing to engage their staff. We know it's happening. And I'll skip the next one because we spoke about the voice and choice, improve staff attendance patterns. So we're going to be looking to see, are they attending more often? Can we see a nice reduction in staff absences? That's the goal. But also, we know those are signs of people showing us how they feel about work life. That matters. Any questions about staff engagement? And the third and final goal area that we're focused on as a team, reducing chronic absenteeism by 5% across every school. Our baseline, you can see there from last year, was 93.46%. So we'd like to have this increase in overall student attendance rates to 95%, and we will do that by the following. Monthly parent square attendance communications and family engagement activities. Targeted interventions for chronically absent students. We know that every school has an attendance team. They work very hard to review the attendance data and think of ways to be reaching out to families. We have different points of, 1 to 5 absences, and when you get beyond that, different things that schools should be doing. That really aligns with the Count Me In work in Maine around combating chronic absenteeism. So this is a real area of focus. How do we communicate more? How do we re-engage families or re-engage students who are struggling with attendance? How can we support each attendance team so they know how to pull all the data that lives in IC and queuing up those letters through Parent Square? Are there creative recognition programs and incentives that schools are using to get students to want to be here? Is that happening at the school level, at the classroom level, throughout the grades? The work that you all know about with BAR and MTSS, multi-tiered system of supports, all of that intervention work really supports this. So we want to monitor how's that going at both the elementary and secondary levels with BAR implementation, and just checking in with those school attendance teams. So those are the areas around our third goal, chronic absenteeism reduction.
Okay. Great goal. Glad to see this here. Just a couple of thoughts, for what they're worth. Even though it seems like a small increase from 93.46 to 95%, I just want to recognize that that's an enormous lift. obviously the closer you get to 100% of anything, the harder that next step becomes. But I have already seen, actionable steps within at least primary school, because that's where I spend my time, that's addressing this and people going all in. So fully support. I know it's a big deal. Nitpicky, just the way the goal is phrased, I would just change it because it implies that the chronic absenteeism baseline was 93.46%. So use one measure or the other, right? Keep attendance at or absenteeism at. Nitpicky, but valid, I would say. Overall, this looks good. And just in closing, because I know this is the last goal, again, really big shout out to you, all the A team. I think these are really good, ambitious goals, and we'll push RSU14 in the right direction. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
I didn't speak out quick enough about the staff engagement. What's the measure for staff satisfaction or their level of engagement's easy because of attendance, but what quantitative or qualitative measures will you use as part of this to try to get feedback?
Well, we have used staff survey feedback in the past. We've also received feedback from community and students, so that would be one piece. Being clear with them that this is a goal area, and we're looking at attendance and their feedback from professional development opportunities they've had or end-of-year survey feedback. Do you want to speak to that? Oh, he's going to get into the next part. Thanks.
Great. So we've actually expanded beyond what was on the agenda for tonight because the board was going to still going into workshop, but want to talk a little bit about thought exchange. I think it'd be good for the public to see it because they're also going to be participating in it. For some reason my laptop doesn't like me tonight. March 5th, 2020. March 5th, 2020, we held a community discussion about the strategic plan and what a portrait of a graduate might look like for students in RSU14. March 13th, schools in Maine shut down. So we had 8 days to work on the strategic plan with the data that we had, and then we spent an entire year on Zoom and limited public meetings and also in trying to get some feedback from students and staff members on our next strategic plan. Our strategic plan officially expires August of 2026, so a year from now we'll be getting ready to launch that strategic plan. And so as Christine and I have been looking at how do we want to structure all of the community input, how do we want to structure student input, how do we want to structure board input, staff input, we started to look at tools that provide that ability. And I know it's going to actually be a help, I think, for the board communication. And Jody, actually getting to your question a second ago about how collecting some feedback from staff. But we've started working with a program called Thought Exchange. Thought Exchange is a opportunity to create a limited public forum. And board members, you've heard comments about public forums, things like Facebook pages and other things. When you go out and look and all of a sudden you've got these list of comments and you actually no longer have any control about those comments, and then you have people that are posting things that have absolutely nothing to do with what you're trying to gain some information. The way Thought Exchange works is that it allows the district to put out a question such as, what's going really, really well in RSU14 and what are some things that we could improve on? And it gives an opportunity for the public or for staff or for students to go in and start listing some items. And then based on that list, other people can go in and review what other people have posted, and then gives you the ability to rate, and then also allows you to then build off and to do comments. Couple things that Thought Exchange does internally is that, number one, it strips names of employees, it strips out profanity, it strips out unkind things that really aren't anything connected, and then really starts to allow a community to have a conversation about here are the things that we think are going really, really well, or things that we need to improve, or for staff, what's going well with professional development, what are some areas that you feel like you need some support, and it allows staff to genuinely put things in. We're looking to use this year for kicking off our strategic plan, putting out some questions to the community, and then having the community the opportunity to go in and provide us some feedback on things that they'd like to see in the strategic plan. Other things that Thought Exchange does for us is that it is very, very good at analyzing and looking for themes. And I know one thing that we've struggled with when we've done our own personal surveys is you get a bunch of answers, and yes, if you add some really good questions, you might have some people all choosing the same thing, but it doesn't give you a lot of individual thought. This then starts to allow for some of those larger trends to come forward and for you to pick out, here's what the community absolutely loves about what's going on in this district, and here are some areas that the community is saying we'd like to see some growth, and then that would then inform our strategic plan. For board members, it's also a good opportunity if you wanted to use it as a tool to gain some feedback from the community on specific policy issues or things that are coming before you. It gets a way to gather that information without putting things on a Facebook page or something else that then becomes a runaway train, and you don't necessarily, you think you're starting with this and then it all of a sudden goes right. And because it's a public forum and a public page, you don't have any right at that point to monitor or start pulling things down. So really a great opportunity to collect that data. And on the back end for us, gives us an idea of, percentage of people are participating, who's putting thoughts out there. Does on the back end also help with presenting that data through some slideshows and some other pieces. Some area districts around us have been using this for a number of years for collecting community feedback, community data on changes, on other pieces before they go, and I think it'd be a great tool for us as we approach heading into strategic plan, because it will be our goal that late October, early November, we're going to be sending things out in the community for strategic planning, then pulling in that data, sending things out to students and staff, and continuing with some of the work we did 5 years ago now with some student summits and collecting some data from students, to then using all of that for next summer to start informing, what are those major bullet points for strategic plan. So wanted to bring it forward, first of all, to get the community to know that this is something that we're working on, but then also for board members, as you're starting to talk communication goal, it could be a tool that you could use for things that you want to give specific or get some specific feedback from the community about decisions that you're going to make throughout the year. So I know this is some next steps. I don't know if there's questions from board members. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, just on Thought Exchange, that looks like a really great tool. How does the public access and interact with it, or know that there's a new prompt for them to potentially respond to?
They would either through Parent Square or through a district-wide email would get a blast. Here's the question. They click on the link and it would take them directly in, and they can then go through that process off of that link. And most likely be Parent Square, because that's where we're trying to pull the data from as far as making sure that people get the emails that we're sending out and the information that they need. But they get the link and then have a chance to go in. And I know ones that I've participated in, the universities launched a few for USM as they're working on programs. First of all, I get the prompt to put in my ideas, and then I can go and look at other people's and then look at, yeah, that's a great idea, or put a comment off of it, and then you start to get some webs that start to grow off of that. Personally, though, as not a big fan of public forums where you can't control things about employees or comments that are made that are outside of policy, to have a program that's designed from the ground up to then say, those things aren't relevant, keeping it relevant to the questions that are there. Go ahead, March.
Okay. I understand what you're saying about public forums, etc. But when you have a public forum, basically any resident can come, whether they have students or not. It's their taxpayer dollars. The way you just described this, it is great, but it sounds like you're talking, it's just Parent Square, which the residents who don't have children in school do not have access to. So when you say it would be a blast, what are you referring to?
We can put links out
Sorry.
for people to access in the local paper. everyone would have to do it digitally. There isn't a paper version of it, but as long as you had the link, you could do that. We could also do a story and have people pointed to our website with the link that's there in order for people to then share their thoughts. I'm guessing that it probably collects individual computers from MAC addresses and knows how many times that people are doing, but it's a good way to just collect conversation and get some data and a chance for the community, whole community to weigh in, not only just the school community, but how we communicate to the school community as Parent Square. I mean, that's how we try to get
Great.
our data out.
Sounds great.
Grace?
Just another group, and I'm not sure how you might be able to be sure to reach at least a sizable number of them, but students that have graduated from the district, and to be sure that there's some way to, if there's a way to follow up and have them also weigh in on the questions, I think would be really valuable information as well.
Jody?
Do you have the ability to look at the raw data with this platform? Because one of the things I like to do is just look at it and sort of chop it up and bring it out the way that I want it to look versus I think the caution with any platforms like this, of course, profanity is very straightforward. That's no problem. But when my kids get blocked on their chats, I always get an email that says, hey, little Johnny said this, and it shows me what the quote was so that I can have an intelligent conversation with them. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. I think one of the challenges with this is if you don't have the raw data, A, it's valuable, I think, so that you're skirting around things being omitted that perhaps you would want to actually see. But B, could you analyze it manually yourself in a way if you had a certain thing that you wanted to take a look at?
I would need to take a look, Jody, to see what the breadth is. You know, someone posting just another one of Howell's failures, whether or not I would be able to see that in the background, I don't know. So I would have to do a little research on how that raw data gets presented. Obviously, when you're looking broadly across an entire community, you're looking at those larger themes that are going to happen, whether or not those other pieces, I got to do a little more digging on that and get back to you on that.
And I guess that leads into who owns the data, right? So is it something that is on a server that we have access to or that we license? And that just goes to that raw data. What happens to it, distribution, ownership, obviously census data, and some of the demographic stuff is public and common knowledge. But those are some of the things that I think about because we may lose the value of some of the input if it's edited. I guess that's my concern.
Yeah, and I guess for something as large as strategic plan, it's hard to write a plan on minor themes. I think those become actionable items that you want to take a look at. I mean, if we're looking at, you can see even in the goals that are presented tonight, it really has breadcrumbs or connections back to the original strategic plan that was done now 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. So there are things that you want to be aware of, but if they don't necessarily lend themselves to one of those themes, they may or may not become an action step. Sometimes they just become an awareness item because strategic plans are going to be some broad goal items to do over that time. But yes, we would own our data, and we have access to our data, and I don't know if something gets scrubbed where it goes, and I can find out some information.
Any other questions? I think we're all set. Thank you. Would anybody like to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the regular meeting and move to a workshop in the library.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. We are adjourned. We're going to move to the library.